Are they wide or not? Okay.
Okay, are we ready? Yes? Okay. It is 3:01, and this is the June 18th meeting of the Architectural Advisory Committee. We ask everyone to silence your cell phones, any other device that may be ringing or vibrating. Planning Director, if we can have roll call.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Member Dosi is excused. Member Jakeway? Member Lockyer is excused. Member McCoy is excused. Member Rotman is excused. Member Payline? Here. Vice Chair Cassidy?
Here.
Chair Song?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. May we have the staff report on the posting of the agenda?
Madam Chair, the agenda was posted on Thursday, June the 14th. This meeting has been noticed and posted in accordance with state law.
Thank you. Does the committee have any revisions to the agenda for today? Okay. Anyone to move to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Member Kenny. Anyone second?
Second.
Thank you. By Member Tom. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Since this is a public meeting, audience members are permitted to comment on any issue that's within this committee's purview. Comments on an item that's already appearing on today's agenda are made at the time the item is being presented. If you want to speak on an item that is not on today's agenda, you may speak now. Each speaker has 3 minutes. Okay. Right? At this point, we'll proceed with the meeting minutes from our last meeting. Member Steve was not here last time.
Okay. So what we will need to do, Madam Chair, is then continue the minutes to our next meeting. That does not require a formal action of the AAC.
Okay, thank you very much. So having said that, we will move to new business. Woodbridge Pacific Group for the approval of an interim landscape plan for the Cameron development located on South Palm Canyon Drive. Staff report, please.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the AAC. So first, I just want to take a minute to give you a little background on this project that is before you today, and to brief you on the reason why you have this item before you. So the Cameron project was approved way back in 2005. It is a mixed-use project that will consist of live-work units and residential units. But because of the economic recession that our city faced, and in fact the entire nation, the development of that project has not moved forward. But 2 years ago, a developer that was a builder that was working with the developer, Davidson Communities, commenced construction on that site. However, that construction activity ceased, and so since that time, the chain link construction fence that was installed and some construction materials and equipment have been at the site unused. As a result of the eyesore and the dilapidated condition of the chain link fence, members of surrounding members of the neighborhood organization and in fact some residents within that area have been making their concerns and issues known. So because of that, staff and indeed City Council have been working with the applicant so that the situation can be improved in that site. So on April 4, 2018, the City Council had the opportunity to review the subdivision improvement agreement for the development itself. At that time, the issue of the site condition came up, and it was agreed between staff and the developer to remove the chain link fence and replace it with an interim landscape and the tubular fencing surrounding the project. So it is as a result of that decision made by council on April 4, which directed that the landscape plan, the interim landscape plan, be presented to the AAC for review and comments. And that is why you have this project before you today.
Thank you, Edward.
You're welcome.
Question for staff, and
If I can just continue for a brief
sorry.
moment. Yeah, so that is just the gist of the background. So about a month ago, we received the plans that's before you, that is contained in your package. And it consists of, like I said, wrought iron fencing and some sort of landscaping consisting of trees to be planted in front of the tubular iron fence. We reviewed it, and staff is in agreement with the developer that this would be an improvement over what is currently at the site. However, as you will see in the staff memo before you, staff is not completely satisfied that this will achieve the purpose of which, for which the council had asked the developer to install the interim landscape plan. So the reasons are stated there. Number one, staff is not persuaded that the sizes of trees will be sufficient. Number two, it did not comply with the agreed upon height of the wrought iron fencing. And so, in addition to the staff report before you, staff also proposed some conditions that should you make a recommendation to the Director of Planning Services to approve this project, that those conditions be met, including additional conditions that may be at the pleasure of the AAC. In addition to that, I want to be very specific that what you have before you is the only matter before you today. What is not before you is what I'm going to be showing you on the monitor. So again, this is the overall plan, the overall site plan, and you see the perimeter landscaping, again, consisting of trees, and on the northerly side, northerly side of the site, that is the side that abuts the creek, the applicant is proposing just the wrought iron fencing in that area. So you see in the analysis what our determinations and concerns are about those, in that it is our opinion that, again, while this would be an improvement over the current condition at the site, this will not be sufficient to create adequate screening for the site. So these are the additional, this page here shows the details of the landscaping on Mesquite and Random Road. And this page here shows you the frontage of the site, which is South Palm Canyon area. And here, this is the portion that I was talking about, which only has the wrought iron fencing. This is the side that abuts the creek. And then you have, of course, the detail of the wrought iron fence. Again, the applicant is proposing 5 foot high. The agreement with city staff and council was for a 6 foot high wrought iron fence. So this is the item that is before you. Now, this exhibit here is one of the samples of the item that is not before you. This consists of the off-site improvements that is being undertaken by the city at this point. So in front of the Cameron project, as we speak, the existing palm trees have been removed. The sidewalks have been removed. This is due to the expansion project that is going there. The palm trees will be reinstalled after the completion of the widening of Palm Springs or South Palm Canyon, which starts from Mesquite to where the bridge terminates. So that portion is not before you, but I just want to provide this as a background because comments and questions may arise. However, I do have a staff from the engineering department just in case you have questions relative to that. But I emphasize that is not what is before you. What is before you is precisely the Cameron project, which I earlier on showed you the site plan. That will conclude my staff report, and I'll be available to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward, for the second time. Okay, questions for staff, starting with, I'm going to start with Kenny, Member Kenny.
Edward, do you know why the, and we may be able to ask the applicant this, but do you know why they're proposing to switch from a 6-foot fence to a 5-foot fence? Is there any logic you can share on that?
I do not know why, and that was why we included in the condition for you to review.
Okay, got it. I think the other question may also be for the applicant regarding the riverside landscaping. I guess my only other question would be, can we try, I know there's probably a lot of folks here who have prepared some comments for us, and we really, really appreciate that you're here and that you're going to share your comments. Could we try to keep the comments, if possible, out of respect for everyone's time, limited to those items that are before us today, as opposed to those items that are not before us today? It would just help move things along. I realize you've probably prepared comments. I don't expect you to edit on the fly, but just please do keep that in mind out of respect for your neighbor's time. Thank you.
Okay, Member Tom.
Edward, just to clarify, I think you said this pretty clearly, but I want to make sure I'm understanding it. The sidewalk and the curb, including putting the new palm trees in the sidewalk, is a separate item that will come later. We're only looking at the area between the edge of the sidewalk and the property that would be re-landscaped.
That is correct.
And is the fence that's going in, is it just a security fence to be in place during construction? Will it be removed when the project is complete?
Absolutely, and that is why this is interim, it's temporary, so to say. You're welcome.
Hey, Member Steve, questions for staff?
No other questions.
Okay, so Edward, building up on that is that the moment they're ready to construct, it will be just like any other project where they will scrape the entire project. So this fence will go away, and the trees and the shrubs and any boulders will all go away because it needs to be fully improved to the backside of the new sidewalk.
That's correct.
Okay. Second thing is that there is no fortune telling knowing how long this interim landscaping will be there, correct?
And that is true, and that is why staff is insisting that should I say, the type of landscaping that is being proposed at this time be an improved one, to be at least aesthetically pleasing, but also to be sufficient enough to create screening for the site, because we do not know when the actual construction will commence.
And also, I did not see anything about, with these tubular fences, they're, for example, 4 inches apart with the pickets.
Correct.
There's no sheet metal or fabric or anything that actually obscures it from the public on the construction site.
That is true. So part of the concerns that we've raised is that there isn't adequate specifications on both the landscaping and the tubular fencing itself. So that would be up to you to give us additional directions on how we achieve those today.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you for waiting. At this point, we will start. Is there anybody here to speak on behalf, on this project?
Madam Chair, perhaps we should call on the applicant first before you open it to the public.
Yes. So right before that, just my colleague here, we are a body here that is reviewing the landscaping design that is interim, that is temporary. We are not here about engineering, about the median, about the entrance, about traffic, or any agreement that was done with City Council or Planning Commission. This body reviews the landscape design that has been put in front of us today, and that's the topic of discussion. You have many other groups that you can take your other comments, but this is what this body would be responsible for reviewing. So I jumped the gun, but before that, is the applicant present? Yes, name and address and your presentation.
Yes, my name's Todd Cunningham. I have a home at 75417 Spyglass in Indian Wells. I represent Woodbridge Pacific Group, which is a company that I'm a partner in. Woodbridge Pacific Group has been hired by the owner of the property, which is Rialto Capital, to manage the property as they get ready to move forward with it. And we may or may not be involved in the actual construction of the project, but right now we're the manager on an interim basis. A little bit of history: the project was approved before the recession. The recession hit. The project was stopped. A new developer came in, Davidson Communities, along with Rialto Capital. Rialto Capital and Davidson in a partnership bought the property, began to develop the property. There's sewer in the ground, there's water in the ground, there's storm drain in the ground, there's dry utilities in the ground. The property is ready to make grade on the streets and put curb and gutter in and pave the streets for the first half of the project. There's millions of dollars of improvements physically in the ground today, consistent with the project that's been approved. A little over a year ago, we had a bank that was to finance the construction and the remainder of the project. The bank pulled out. Major national bank said, and they just said they're moving out of the Coachella Valley, and they've not chosen to go forward with any of the loans that they had made. And in the interim, the effort to secure financing to replace that has been futile. Not been able to do it. So the project got started, the bank pulled out, and the project has stopped. We've secured the site with a sealer and done the best we can to keep the fence in good shape. When the subdivision improvement agreement came to the city council said we want to do something about the perimeter. We said we agree. And so here we are with an interim plan that is a complete throwaway when the project gets developed, but one that will secure the site with a fence. And we have no problem going to a 6-foot fence. I'll just go to that right away. We can go from 5 to 6 feet. And provide some, a clean perimeter. DG, boulders, trees, clean. And then in addition to that, we are doing the work on Palm Canyon. It's not a city project. And we have started that work and removed the old palm trees, removed the sidewalk, and we're getting ready to start actually physically widening Palm Canyon and adding the median from the channel down to Mesquite, and improvements around the corner on Mesquite. So that's ongoing, and as part of that, we'll be putting the new palm trees in along Mesquite per the landscape plan that's already been approved with the entitlement for the project. So that won't be coming back. Somebody asked if I was going to be coming back. It won't be coming back unless, I don't know why it would, because it's an improved landscape plan. And then, so we're doing the sidewalk, the new sidewalk, the palm trees, and then from the back of the curb to this interim fence is where we would landscape along Palm Canyon and around the property. As far as the north end of the site and the fact that we have a tubular steel fence along the north end for security, we hadn't planned on screening anything from the trail. We certainly could consider it. Adding some additional screening materials, meaning plant materials, along the trail, along the creek. So when we finish the work on Palm Canyon and Mesquite, we would then remove the construction fencing that's there and replace it with this plan. But we wouldn't do that until we're done with the work, which should be by September. As soon as we get done with Palm Canyon and Mesquite, then we install this. Unless construction starts on the project in the interim. If the financing comes through or the property gets sold to another builder, then we'd come back to the city and say, we're about ready to start construction. So, then it'll be like a chicken and egg thing, whether you put the fence in and then take it out or what you do. But for right now, this interim plan is meant to bridge from the completion of Palm Canyon and Mesquite improvements to the point in time when the project goes back under development.
Okay.
That's it, yeah.
Mr. Cunningham, do you have other staff member here?
I have the landscape architect,
Okay.
Jack Norn, and then we have our project manager, Ehrlich.
Okay, very good. So we'll turn it to the audience and then we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so public comments from the audience. It would be nice if you can start lining up, and you have 3 minutes, your name and address, and we do have a timer here. Okay, thank you.
All set?
Yes.
I'm Eric Borsum, and I'm chair of the board of the Tahquitz River Estates Neighborhood Organization. I live at 1176 East San Lorenzo Road, which is 2 blocks from the Cameron site. And I'm here on behalf of hundreds of people, actually, whose perspectives on the proposed landscape plan I have had the opportunity to have shared with me. First, let me say that we've had a good relationship with Todd, and I appreciate what he said earlier about the north side of the site. I'd also like to have you convey our thanks to the City Council for actually having us arrange the meeting to meet with the developer and have the neighborhood meeting, because we got our feedback there. And thank you also to city staff, in particular to planning, for all the hard work they put in on this. Thank you for listening to our neighborhood's concerns and for recommending that changes to the plan address those concerns. It really made the neighborhood very, very happy. The staff report recommends landscaping on 3 sides of the property, as we just talked about. And that's the South Palm Canyon side, Mesquite, and Random. There's currently no plan for landscaping at the north side of the property facing Tahquitz Creek. Now, right now, if you're on the north side looking toward the neighborhood or looking toward the site, there's a really clear view of 10, 11 acres of construction remnants and pipes and that green rhino snot covering everything. And it's a perfect view because it's elevated. When you come in from downtown, you're coming into the neighborhood. Residents and visitors enjoy that wash. They jog, hike, bike, take photos, check out native plants. We've been bat watching, they're star watching, they exercise their dogs along the north boundary of the Cameron project. So whether you're on foot or bicycle in the wash, or if you're in a car driving over the bridge, over the wash there at South Canyon, you really see something that's ugly. So what our primary request was that we like everything that's included in the plan so far, but we ask that you please require landscaping on that 4th side so that we could see something. It doesn't have to be the same sort of trees or to the same extent. It's a narrow path, but if we could have something that obscures the view so we don't look at the rhino snot in the construction, we'd like to have a good impression for everybody in the neighborhood there. So, on behalf of Tahquitz River Estates and the surrounding neighborhoods, Warm Sands, Deepwell, et cetera, the Tahquitz Creek Yacht Club, the businesses on Sunny Dunes and South and East Palm Canyon Drives, our neighborhood resorts and our boutique hotels, the congregations at the Presbyterian Church and at the First Church of Christ Scientist, and on behalf of the families with kids at Cahuilla School and a lot of others. They're the people who weighed in on this, and we consolidated their comments. So, I thank you for taking under consideration our request.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker.
My name is Larry Bongort. I'm a Palm Springs resident. I live at 725 East Twin Palms Drive, a little bit south of the Cameron property. I'm a licensed architect. I have been since 1979. And it's exciting to see this project moving forward, finally, after all these years. And I applaud the developer for their commitment to what undoubtedly has been a challenging project. I was looking at the interim landscape plan. I think it's an exciting interim step for the project to see that development on the property rather than just the chain link construction fence. I certainly support the staff recommendation that there be a variety of trees rather than a single species applied around the perimeter, and that there be shrubs added to the site. I think that the container size of the shrubs should be specified as part of the conditions. The only other thing I wanted to point out is that the perimeter fence has been referred to as a wrought iron fence. You heard that in the opening presentation by staff. It is referred to that way in the staff memorandum. It's referred to that way in the City Council staff report. That is not, in fact, what it is. It is a tubular steel fence. Detail B on sheet 1 of the landscape plans prepared by SJA clearly show a tubular steel fence with tubular steel pickets, top and bottom rail, and posts. Wrought iron and tubular steel are two very different materials. I would admonish staff to use terminology with precision at this point to avoid misunderstandings and problems in the future.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker.
Afternoon. My name is Michael Green. I own 2 properties that abut this project. I own the property, the residence on the corner of Random and Mesquite, and the hotel on the corner of Random and San Lorenzo. During the time this project has been in disrepair, our property has been flooded twice by the project, and our property has been sand blown several times. I would encourage you, as you look at the plan, to consider how you can make some accommodation for the fact that there is a repeat pattern of flooding and that there is a repeat pattern of windstorms. I know that they have covered the project recently, but it's been many years that it hasn't been covered, and I would hope that the landscaping plan would include appropriate berms to keep it from flooding onto the adjacent properties again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Crippen, and I have a place at 145 East Mesquite, right across from the planned project. It's an apartment complex that I own. I moved here in 2001. I was involved with Jenny Foad and Chris Mills to establish the neighborhoods way back, so I've been very involved. I've been involved with every developer that's been involved with this project. The operative word is interim. Again, the project is dated, so whoever buys this is going to want to come back and do a whole new planning process. So the interim basis is very important to realize. It's going to be a long time before it gets changed. So I think it's important that you look at the fact that this interim will probably become very permanent for many, many years, not interim. And I think it's going to be important that there's some burns, as Michael Green suggested, that they have some vines around the tubular, and there's also maintenance, that because again, there's a lot of dust that blows across it, there's tumbleweeds, trash. It needs to be maintained weekly by a gardener or something to pull weeds and so forth. It can't just be there and then go away. It's going to be there for a long time, and there's got to be a commitment on the part of the developer that this thing is maintained on an ongoing basis and that we basically have something that we can appreciate. It's been an eyesore since I've been there, and I'd like to see some major change that's not just interim, but at least on a permanent basis, because it's going to be a long time before anything's done on that property. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Brenda Scott. I represent the Christian Science Church right across the street where Random and Riverside come together. Up there, if this plan were up there on the screen, it would be the lower right-hand corner where that curve is. The church lobby is elevated, and we have been looking at the current situation there for some years. It's been very nice to talk to Todd Cunningham and to Eric Borsum and the neighborhood. They've all been so helpful, and we're all on the same page about the new fence and landscaping, just concealing the what's on the site, the green, the boulders, the construction things that are unsightly. And so I'm just concerned about that landscaping at the north end, right at the bottom curve. So if we can just not have to look at that, what's left on that construction site for the time to come and whatever plans and developer comes along, that we would appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Chaffin, and I live at 205 East Mesquite Avenue, directly across the street from this lovely project. The issue that propelled me to this meeting is traffic and some of the traffic calming issues. I gather that needs to be taken up elsewhere, so I'll pursue that where I can. In the meantime, I would simply like to offer my encouragement to get this done. Those of us who live directly across the street from this project have put up with dust, graffiti, all kinds of craziness. When I moved here in 2012, it was just about to get started, and here we are 5 years later. It's still in a state of disrepair. I would encourage you to get this approved, and let's get it done. Our neighborhood deserves something a little bit more than what we've been dealing with. Also, for my own benefit, I'd appreciate some clarification about the completion dates for the various portions of this project. As I've followed neighborhood blogs and read things, I hear dates that might be September 1st, but maybe that only applies to Palm Canyon. I'm curious about the rest of it. When will we see a completion of the landscaping on Mesquite, on Random, and even on the Wash, as previous people have discussed? Whatever you decide, please, let's get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Jacob Azar. I'm at 185 East Mesquite. I'm a neighbor of the last two people that spoke. I've been there since 2010, so for 8 years now, I've been staring at a monstrosity property, which keeps getting our hopes up high that a new project is happening and someone's taking it over, and none of that is ever happening. So I want to echo what both of my next door neighbors have just said about this property proposal right now. We have to get this done. If you sit here and say, no, this plan is no good, we're going to be waiting another 6 or 8 weeks or months for another new plan to whether or not there's going to be 6 trees or 8 trees in front of this thing. We need something in there now because we have no confidence at all that any construction will ever happen in this property. That's what's been going on for the last 8 years that I've been here and whatever the previous amount of years was before I've owned that home. I'm tired of looking at it, and I'm tired of hearing about delays, and I'm tired of hearing about banks failing, banks backing off from the deals. That's not my problem. They own this property. They have a right. They have an obligation for the neighborhood to make it look decent, and that's what I'm asking for today.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Linda Van Dusen, and I live at 1080 South Palm Canyon, approximately 50 feet away from that plot of land. And it has been an eyesore. I'm so sorry, but everybody's mistaken. I want to say since 1974 would probably be a better date. It has been in disrepair. And we moved here in 1971 because there was Sherman's Market and all of that going on right there. That's fine. It's not there. And that's wonderful that there's going to be a fence around there and that I may be able to rollerblade around it before I turn 100. That word interim really bothers me. It's interim since 1974, so I would like to see, and probably everybody else in the neighborhood would like to see what that word means. If we could possibly get something sent out to the Tahquitz River Neighborhood Estate that says, hey, we're going to be doing construction this Monday every week for this month. And that way we know we can avoid that area. We may even, maybe you want to even divert some traffic because it causes a lot of jam up at that bridge while you're doing that. And one more point is at the Spa Casino where the palm trees are being housed temporarily that were cut off and going to be moved back. They have a temporary construction fence. They have little lights on it. In this entire conversation, I really didn't hear safety, and I didn't hear the word lights around the perimeter. It's kind of unsafe under the bridge. I know Cameron is not with the bridge, but there are people living under the bridge, and it would be nice if there were lights attached to the 5 or 6 foot or whatever foot fence, and if we could have some dates. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. Bill Miller, William Miller. I'm with the Palm Springs Presbyterian Church. And our church, fortunately, isn't immediately there, but we're just around the way at Camino Real. And I sympathize with everyone here, and I appreciate the fact that you folks are taking your time to be with us, and I hope you're all taking notes and listening quite intently, because this is an important issue. I might not live there. I live up on San Rafael, actually, at the north end of the city, and I can tell you something about some sand. Here, that the Ford dealer's been taken down, the Rock Garden restaurant's missing. All these things are wide open, and that's just sand, sand, sand. And then you've got this construction site that's wide open to the wind. So all of that is coming around, and I truly sympathize with the people that are on the wrong end of the block there. I'm also a horticulturist, Bill's Landscaping. I've been at this since the 1960s. As one gentleman was saying, anytime you put something in, it's got to be taken care of, it's got to be watered, it's got to be nurtured, weeds have to be pulled. So that has to be kept in mind as well. And then one thing that was the lady that just spoke, it gets dark here. And we all know it gets dark here, and it's nice to be able to see the stars, but it's nice to be able to see where your feet are going at night too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
I'm Joan Martin. I live at 634 East Palo Verde, about 4 or 5 blocks away from the wash. However, I'm involved with the Tahquitz Creek Yacht Club, and we're concerned about the condition of the north side of this property because it borders our area that we maintain. If it would be ideal if, as well as going around the 3 more populous streets, some plantings were put so that we could not look directly into the project. This would be ideal. Now, I know, as I understand it, you're limited to desert plantings. I'm not sure what it is that climbs up anything. All I know is wild cucumber, and I've never seen it in town anywhere. But any plantings that would help would be very much appreciated. Now, I've noticed that inside, that would be near the Christ Scientist Church at that corner. Apparently, homeless people have made their way in there and they've left their artifacts behind. So this is an issue, both the fact that they're in there, but maintenance of the interior of the project on the inside of the fences, I think, should be considered. Routine, regular maintenance where you pick up the trash and keep a semblance of order there. So thank you so much. Good luck.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Cunningham, can you come back up? We have some questions with your team. Okay, questions for the applicant. I'm going to start with Member Steve.
Okay, my first question was, how different and how complex was the permanent screening for the complex that was initially designed? And was that approved by planning and council?
The permanent screening meaning when the project's completed, what does the perimeter of the project look like?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so along Mesquite, which is the east side of the, on Random Road, which is the east side, which is the bottom, and up Mesquite, every other one of those homes actually fronts on Mesquite or Random. So there is no like perimeter wall or anything there. It's designed to every other house to come out on Mesquite or Random, and every other house, the other homes have an interior access. Along Palm Canyon, there's a commercial corner. There's 2 commercial pads that go from Mesquite and head north until the triplex building you can see up there. And there's, you know, it's frontage improvements along Palm Canyon, so there's no like wall or anything there. Okay. It's landscaping. There is a landscape plan that comes up there. And then from that triplex building to the entrance and up to the wash, there's a wall that goes along there to give privacy to those homes. So there's not, and yeah, all that was approved with the project. The landscape plans were integral part of the approval for the project.
Yep. Great. And then is there a substantial amount of construction sort of debris and equipment on the site that
yes,
could be removed?
Yeah, I meant to mention that. There are some old pipes in there. There's some old construction. I mean, there's water pipe, sewer pipe, storm drain pipe that's been degraded by infrared light and the like. It's all trash. So we're going to get all that out. We made that commitment to City Council to get all of the debris off the site and clean it up, you know, and then seal it again. And since we sealed it, we haven't had the dust problem, but we did have an event that was pretty bad 2 years ago or whenever it was.
Okay, and then in addressing the lighting question, is there lighting? I think there were lights on the palm trees before.
Yes, so
uplights. So
the new palm trees along Palm Canyon will have uplights on them.
So there is some lighting.
Yeah, and the new sidewalk and everything will be there. But there is no sidewalk along Mesquite or Random.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, Member Tom, questions for applicant?
Yeah, a couple things. What you just mentioned, no sidewalk on Mesquite or Random, is that when the project is built out, there will be no sidewalk there?
I'm going to ask Ulrich, do we have...
Robert, sorry, can you step up?
Ulrich Sauerbrei, ULRICH, SAUERBREY, 74948 Live Oak Street, Indian Wells. I'm a project manager for Rialto/Woodbridge. Yeah, in the future, permanent development, there is a sidewalk that works its way across the driveways, as Todd mentioned, every other driveway facing Mesquite and Random. So yes, there will be sidewalks there as the project develops out in the future.
So then is this landscaping that we're looking at today along Mesquite and Random, is it going up to the edge of the existing curb?
No, it's set back off the curb.
So there'll be a raw piece of land between the curb and the landscaping?
Well, it's going to be, we're going to install DG and boulders and the trees.
Okay, so it's part of your improvements?
Yes.
And one of the letters that we received, I don't think anybody mentioned it in the public hearing today, but a letter that we received mentioned the possibility of using the existing boulders that came out of the excavations that are on the site now as part of this improvement project. Is that something that's feasible?
Sure. If we have rocks on the site, we got to put them somewhere, so that'd be a great place for them.
Thank you.
Rather than truck in, you know, rocks from the outside.
Okay, Member Kenny, questions?
Hi there.
Hi.
What is the proposed, I've been trying to find it here real fast, the proposed color of the fence that's going up?
Right? Oh, that's a good question.
It is black?
Yeah, I believe
Okay,
it's
thank
black.
you. I was searching around. Okay, I think that is a comment that I'll make a little bit later.
And it is tubular steel, not wrought iron. So.
Right, that I identified. Okay, I think I have no additional questions. The rest are comments.
Okay, Mr. Cunningham. Did you sort of run the math of what it would be like to pretend you have to, you know, sell this project to another partner, of how would the project will present itself if you were to build the actual wall that you proposed on the original design, the fence wall?
Well, there really is no fence along Mesquite or Random because those homes front on that street.
But maybe I'm wrong, but I thought you had this front door treatment where you did have permanent fence as part of the design. Am I wrong?
To the front of the home?
Yeah.
On Mesquite and Random? And I don't recall that. That's possible, but it'd be interim pieces you know, with garage driveways coming through it. So
Right.
it wouldn't really.
So,
And plus, there's construction that has to go along with that, and to put walls up and then build homes around those or try to make all that work, I don't think it'd be real feasible, certainly along Mesquite and Random.
I was asking purely from the fact that it sounds like there were utilities and grading underway that had stopped. So I thought that there was much more, sort of like your rough pad elevations. They haven't been done. Earlier in your presentation, you said that utility work, so plumbing, sewer, utilities, that work was already done. And so the next step would have been rough grading for finished pad elevations?
Well, the next step is to make grade on the streets and get the curb and gutter in and pave the streets, and then we've got to redo all the pad certifications. Over time, it's degraded.
So even the curb and gutter improvements, that's not something that would present itself to the next partner as a selling point, that the project has been much more into the improvements rather than stopping at this point?
Yeah, the curb and gutter and the improvements would go in 2 or 3 phases as the project got built and construction proceeded. The biggest improvement that we can make to make the project most feasible for somebody to buy and move forward are the Palm Canyon and Mesquite improvements. Those are the major horizontal improvements to be done with the traffic control and the widening of the Palm Canyon and putting the median and all that in. So they're making that investment in the property, which will substantially clean up the perimeter of the project and probably do as much as to help the appearance of the project as this landscaping will do.
So just to recap, the properties, the homes that are adjacent to the wash, at the property line, at the very end, is there a wall?
Yes.
Okay. However, on Mesquite and Random, from the curb, you can walk right up to the front door of the homes. Right. There is no intermediate open fence of any kind.
No, and the driveways face right onto the street, the garage doors.
The garage, right, okay. So the improvement there on the final approval was sort of trees.
Right, street trees and
spacing in between. And the reason why you couldn't put those trees now is obviously because you had to lay down the utilities to the homes, construct the driveway, and so on. They will get on your way.
Yeah, those trees would go in last because after construction, you got to go in and do your finish grading and
right.
get all the swales and drainage right, and then you put the trees in.
Okay. However, and then the same thing applies on Palm Canyon, that because you have the mixed-use component, there is no fence on those 2 properties facing Palm Canyon.
Right, they're commercial, meant to be open to Palm Canyon.
But isn't there a fence in between the commercial and the residential?
In between, meaning running east-west behind that triplex?
Yeah,
or meaning
see the driveway that's running north-south?
Yes.
Parallel to Palm Canyon?
Okay, yes,
okay.
That street, yeah.
So east of that, isn't there a fence?
Yes, there would be a fence there.
There will be a fence?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I see.
That's well into the interior of the property.
Okay, what about the comments that with the landscape architect, the variation of tree types? Did you have a chance to look at what would be a second type if that were to be implemented?
I have not. The Palo Verde is a fast-growing tree that would, that would screen, I think, as effectively as anything else that's drought tolerant out here. We could certainly look at an alternate, and Jack could address that, our landscape architect, if you'd like him to address
could you come up and let us know what other options you're looking at for tree selection?
Hi, Jack Norton, SJA, 1527 South Palmetto Avenue, Ontario, California. We haven't really looked at alternatives yet. We weren't aware that we needed to look for alternatives, but we can certainly come up with alternatives to interplant between the Palo Verdes.
And do you have any concept right now on what kind of landscaping would be between the wash and the homes on the north property line?
My understanding is there's a relatively small planting area in there right now, but we could look at doing some bougainvillea or some type of vine like that, which would,
Thank you. Any additional questions? Yes, Member Tom.
Question for the developer. The comment that was made by the adjacent owner about flooding from the property, was that just runoff from rain, and can that be controlled with berming or something that might be incorporated into this?
I have been unaware of any flooding. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I'm aware of the wind and the sand, but that's the first I've heard about flooding.
The site does seem to slope from west to east towards those properties.
Yes.
So if it were necessary, I mean, would that be something that we could add to this, a slight berming to control, keep the water onto the property?
If there's a spot on that property where water's going across the street into the adjacent properties to the east, then we'd certainly be interested in fixing that. But I don't know that that means you just build a berm all the way along there. There's some area where there's water penetration or something that's happening that we should sandbag or something so that doesn't happen.
Probably the solution might be meeting with the particular owners there and find out where the water did come off of your property and then see.
Right. Yeah, like I said, it's the
and
first
you're right,
time.
not a linear, continuous berm, but something that highlights the areas that are
We certainly
problematic.
don't have a problem with that.
I have one more question, and maybe staff related. The area between where the wash is, what would you say the width of that landscape area is? 5 feet, 8 feet, or a variation?
Probably be between 8 and 10.
Okay.
Feet wide, yes.
Well, there is a approved plan, for the trail, plant palette and everything, the master plan for the trail, planting material that, and I don't know where that plan stops and how much room is between our fence and the actual designated trail area that ultimately would be.
Is that part of City Link, or?
No,
the director's
that's
plan?
separate. There was a specific landscape treatment and wall approved as part of the Cameron development that would be required to be in place, and it was reviewed for consistency with the city's adopted Tahquitz Creek master plan.
Back to you.
Yeah, I don't know how much room is between. We're going to build a wall along the north side when the project gets built, and beyond that will be the Tahquitz River plant material, but I don't know what.
And it's today or in the next couple of months, it's not feasible to build that permanent wall between the wash and your property?
No, not feasible. But we've got to build homes along there and do other improvements.
You have access from other sides.
Well, yeah, but that wall gets pretty tight in there for construction, scaffolding.
Okay.
It's pretty tight in the corner of those homes in the back there.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if we could just have the applicant talk about the time frame for the installation of the interim landscape plan and the South Palm Canyon improvements, if you wouldn't mind mentioning them.
So South Palm Canyon improvements, we've had a little bit of an issue. We got started. We moved the fence back. We took out the sidewalk, and we've had an issue with the traffic signal at Mesquite and Palm Canyon and getting the pole and the arms and everything for it. And it's got a pretty long lead time. So we're trying to work around and figure out a solution to that. But right now, our goal is to be done with the Palm Canyon improvements in Mesquite in September. And then as soon as we're done with that, we will install this landscaping. So it'll be in the fourth quarter or fall that this will go in. It just depends on when we can get this traffic signal thing straightened out down at Mesquite and Palm Canyon. because we got to replace part of the signalization there.
Does that September deadline include the Mesquite Avenue curb and gutter?
Yes, down to the entrance there on the south side of the property. The improvements come down Palm Canyon and then swing to the east down to that drive entry there. And the reason for that is because at that point there's a dedicated right turn that needs to get built between that entrance and up to Mesquite. So there'll be a right turn only lane, and we're going to put that in.
So up to that point, there'll be curb, gutter, sidewalk, correct?
Yeah, permanent.
Okay, and then from that driveway going east, it would be as is?
On the interim?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, yeah, per this plan, we're stepping back from the curb and treating that area.
Correct.
So it's not like it is today. But
Correct, but the new curb and gutter will not continue on to
Correct.
the east side? Okay.
there is curb and gutter there, but it won't be the permanent. All that gets replaced.
All right, so we're looking at the completion of partial Mesquite and Palm Canyon on September, and then thereafter immediately will be the landscape improvements.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I would like to start with Member Steve. Any comments or discussion points?
Okay, so I agree with staff recommendation and many members that I think landscaping does need to happen on the wash. We need to have that. I agree that the variation of planting, I think some interspersing of bougainvillea to cover some of the fence could be appropriate. I was concerned about a comment about making more solid because I think that might be more of a security issue for homeless. If there's not visibility through that, I think you might have a bigger homeless issue than we would. I think the mitigation of the flooding needs to happen, and I'm happy about the lights on the trees. So I think that's it.
Okay, Member Tom.
Well, certainly the landscaping would be a huge improvement for the area, and I think we definitely need more than just Palo Verde trees, especially trees that are only 15 gallon. They're awfully small. I wouldn't say every one has to be bigger, but I think it might be nice if there was both a variety of size and type of tree, and then some shrubbery that could get added. I think using the boulders from the site could be a great way to get them out of your way and be able to dress up that area. I still want to go back to your question about the wall on the wash and also the very northwest corner where the wall seems to be coming all the way over to get to 4 parking spaces. It would seem to me that the cost of a wrought iron fence and trees that are going to be eventually removed, would that be much different than building that wall now? I think certainly building that wall now would solve the yacht club's issue of looking onto the property. It would give it a nice solid feature, and if it's going to be there one day, I mean, we saw the Dakota project build those units very close to an existing property line wall that they installed. So I would like to investigate that option more. And lighting, you know, we do want to have a dark sky here in town, but I wonder if every 4th or 5th tree might have an uplight in it along Mesquite and Random also, so we get a little light around the neighborhood.
Thank you. Member Kenny.
I would concur with the comments that have been made so far. I really like the idea of pulling some boulders from within the site. I want to be sensitive to getting something done, but at the same time sensitive to the fact that this is going to be, a lot of this material is going to be, air quotes, throwaway. But pulling the boulders from within the site is one way to help do that. But then in reverse, I wonder if adding a type of tree to the mix that might be part of the landscape plan for the interior of the project later, and those trees can be relocated back to the interior so that they're not all throwaway. perhaps a little, I don't know how practical that is, but a little bit of thinking ahead might help save some money and not create a bunch of throwaway materials afterwards. But other than that, I would concur with the comments that have been made so far. I like the idea of getting something up on the river side of the project. If putting the wall up is doable, it just seems to make sense. And try to reduce extra materials being thrown away.
I think that definitely the project is moving in the right direction. I think it's an interim solution for what is going to come in the future. I think the initial approach is good, but I do think that there is information missing. Some of the ideas that we're talking about, how are they going to actually be implemented in plan? So for every tree, will there be a boulder right next to it? Or, will there be something like 40% of boulders, being laid out? I think we need a little more direction on the finality of what type of variation and other species that may be installed. How often will the boulders be located? And then also for the applicant to investigate if a permanent wall on the wash could be possible or not. And so I'm moving for a motion that we continue this project with the applicant giving us more precise information to the next time, to our next session. So if I have a...
Can I ask a quick question? It
Yes.
does seem to make sense to do that, and from the time frame that the applicant mentioned, it doesn't sound like it would slow anything down, because we're not talking about starting that project. Obviously, you have to order some fencing and materials, but it doesn't sound like a continuation to at least our next session to get some more detail on the plan would slow anything down. So I would, in that case, I would second that motion.
Okay. Yes, comment or question? Oh.
A question, is it possible for us to approve just the fence today and approve the landscaping later, since the fence is a pretty given situation?
Would that help the staff?
I don't know if it would help the applicant to approve the fence now and come back with the landscaping. I think what we could actually do is just come back at one of your July meetings and get the fence and the landscaping together as a complete package.
So thank you for the clarification. The motion is to continue the project with additional information, as was stated with the questions and comments today. We have a second on that, and so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Thank you very much. So at this point, committee member comments? Oh. Sorry. Any comments from the committee member? Yeah, Member Tom.
I have a question of staff. I was over at the Rowan this weekend, and it appears that there might be a number of things that were initially going to be going on the building that aren't on the building. You can see where there are some brackets on the top of railings. You can see where there's, looks like drapery tracks up high on some of the balconies. When we approve these projects and certain design features that get added that aren't structural, how is the follow-up done to make sure that each of those decorative features gets completed as it was suggested to us?
Planning staff reviews the building permit set for comparison with the approved plans that have been approved by our various boards and commissions to make sure that they're substantially consistent with what was approved. Some of the things that you just mentioned are actually to assist with doing the window washing, and that's why those things are in place. It's because that's how they hang their equipment off of the building. With the pop-outs and things like that, it made it a little bit unique in doing that.
So as a committee member, over the last 2 weeks, there's been a city council vote to extend 6 months on several board and committee members. Flynn, would you like to talk more about that?
Yes, if I could, please. Thank you. As you may be aware, the City Council is undergoing a discussion about districting the city and districting for elections. And so as part of that, they're doing a great deal of outreach to try and get input and also to encourage greater diversity on our boards and commissions. As part of that outreach process, they'd like to wait 6 months before they make appointments to all of the boards and commissions. And so what they did at City Council 2 weeks ago was basically defer the extension of those whose terms would be expiring on June 30th for 6 months and giving them an additional 6 months to serve. And also, those who may be term limited would also benefit from that same 6-month extension. Architectural Advisory Committee is slightly different than the other boards and commissions in that you are appointed by the Planning Commission and not City Council. And so at the Planning Commission meeting on June the 13th, they discussed doing the same thing for Architectural Advisory Committee, and the board, the commission did approve that extension. And so Mr. Cassidy and Ms. Song, whose terms would be expiring on June 30th, could then be extended through the end of the year. And so that's the direction that the Planning Commission would like to take if Mr. Cassidy and Ms. Song agree to the extension of their terms. They are under no requirement to continue to serve if they wouldn't like to do that. However, we would like to keep them on if you are in agreement.
We have a basket of collection going around now. But it would be the same come the first meeting of July. We will have elections as if it was a new fiscal year.
That is correct. We will go ahead and proceed with elections on our boards and commissions with the understanding that you could elect someone to be chair or vice chair even if their term is expiring in December, and then we would do elections again. And we will extend that to Planning Commission as well as Historic Site Preservation Board and Architectural Advisory Committee. So that way we have some continuity of the leadership through this transition period.
So Kenya and I have discussed it, and we're either you take both of us or none of us.
Well, that will have to be scheduled for discussion, so I would encourage you to discuss that when we have that on your agenda. And we will do that, I believe, on your next agenda. We'll have the elections of your chair.
I meant our extension.
Oh, your extension.
Yeah, by no means
okay.
I meant, yeah. Mr. Roberts, do you have any comments?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. So earlier I mentioned that there is a staff from the engineering department to answer questions relative to offsite improvement. His name is Rickman Harris, and he's an engineering associate. So from here on, he will be attending our meetings in case and as often when questions comes up regarding engineering issues. So I will be available to assist us. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Rick. And great to have you because we do have questions. Yeah. Other than that, why is our meeting in a different place?
We are going to be redoing council chambers yet again.
Okay.
There are some adjustments that are needed to our current furniture and our equipment. And so that will start in the month of July. And so we'll be over at the Convention Center. I'm glad you brought that up. And so starting next month, we'll be at the Convention Center.
Thank you. So planning member Doug, are you also continuing on the 6 months?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, even though he is not term limited, they...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, actually, though, even I am entitled, well, I'm not entitled to anything, but I have the chance to reapply for another 3-year term.
Okay.
But they're deferring that for another 6 months, and I'm going with everybody else. I'm not technically terming out, but I am subject to the 6-month extension.
Okay, great. There's any other comments?
I just have 2 more comments. Number one, we do have a study session coming up on June the 27th. That will be held at 11 a.m. And I think I sent out an email to all of you, and those who are available will be attending. We're going to be reviewing the downtown park plan. Our consultant on the project provided the 50% design development drawings, and we want to review those with the Architectural Advisory Committee and the Planning Commission, the full boards of both, to get your comments on that. Even though we do have representatives from both AAC and Planning Commission sitting in those subcommittee meetings, they wanted to get the full input of both the Planning Commission and AAC. So we hope that you'll be able to join us on the 27th. And then finally, several meetings ago, and several times you asked me about the signage on North Palm Canyon. Unfortunately, the City Council gave the direction to dispose of the signage. They did not ask to have it preserved. And so I believe that is completely gone. I don't think that they kept any part of that, unfortunately.
Member Tom.
Let's see, I believe we have that over at the Convention Center.
Okay, very good. It's 4:12, and if there's no more comments, we're adjourned. We're through half the year.